Hi, welcome back. Time to cut the nonsense. Let's talk MindSense. I'm your host, Meena J.
मन की बातें तो होती रहेंगी. Keep watching MindSense. मैं हूँ आपकी host, Sarita Chand.
And ਅੱਜ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ, a very positive influence in our community, ਆਪਣੀ community ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, Sandy Desange and Cal Desange, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us on the show.
Yes, thank you. So we're so happy that both of you could make it and join us on MindSense. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਦੱਸੋ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ, or were you from here, where are you from?
ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਜੰਪਲ ਆ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੈ ਤਲਵੰਡੀ ਮਾਧੋ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੀ ਜੰਪਲ ਆ ਕਿਆਲ ਦਾ ਬੌਰਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦਾ ਜੰਪਲ ਆ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਟ੍ਰਿਪ ਤੇ ਗਏ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਾਮਾ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਵੈਡਿੰਗ ਸੀਗੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਅੰਕਲ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ 17 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਅਸੀਂ 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਮਿਲੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ
So 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ he said ਹਾਂਜੀ yes done deal done.
I think Cal describes more.
Okay, let's hear from Cal.
I think she showed just as much excitement and enthusiasm.
Cal's like, I'm not leaving ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਵਿਆਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ.
No, actually, the opposite happened. So we met, like she said, it was for about 5-10 minutes. And, I mean, that's a big life decision to make. And it's not something where you can just make in that time frame.
Yeah.
Where you can just say, yes, good to go. Like, we're talking about the rest of your life.
Yes.
And so I needed time to think. And so her family background, who she was, her education, just her personality, her disposition, like everything, it jived. Like, I think we both share the same attributes and qualities and characteristics. And so there was that connection. But it's not, once again, it's not something that you can just roll the dice on. And so I said to my parents at the time, I need time to think. But when you're in India, in a small village, yeah, so when I was put in that situation, once again, that's something you don't roll the dice with. And you need to think about these sort of things very carefully because you have to spend the rest of your life with this person. And so, I mean, I needed time to think. But when you're in India in a small village and you say that to very traditional family, especially the patriarch, who was her grandfather, who was sitting there with a rifle around his neck.
ਕੀ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, right?
Right?
So true.
So the thing is just and when I said that I need time to think, and my parents relayed that to her aunt, he was angry. He was very angry. So after we left, I found out later from her that he goes, no, I am not letting this happen.
ਉਹ ਵੈਰੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨਲ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਵਾਬ ਉਸੇ ਵੇਲੇ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਡਿਸਰਿਸਪੈਕਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਿਆ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੁੜੀ ਨਾਲ 5 ਮਿੰਟ ਸਪੈਂਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਿਆ because that's what they were expecting.
And we're talking 17 years back, right?
17, almost 2 decades back.
And I think also in the small villages, they don't expect you to take your decision. They think they have the elders. The elders, they've already introduced, the answer should be yes.
Yes, that's right. Right, there's basically saying, hey, this is just a formality. Where you two are meeting, the answer is already yes,
just
as far as we're concerned.
From Canada, they allowed you to meet her.
Right? You should be lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And from that perspective, it makes complete sense. But I mean, once again, it's just being born here, born and raised here. It wasn't a decision I was willing to make right away. So I went home, and they called a few times by that evening. And so they were like, "Bite son of the Sohandana," like just that simple. And finally, I had a chance to work out, flush it out of my system, and figure out a response. And I thought, you know what? Why not? I mean, at some point in time, we have to settle down, and I think she's the right fit, the right one. And so that same week, as soon as I said yes, within days, it was all set, and we were in the Gurdwara, and we were getting married. And we had our honeymoon the same week.
Oh my God.
I know.
I have to go back and ask you, so Cal, when you were going to India, did you know that you were going to get introduced to a girl and come back
married?
Right.
You go single and you come back married.
Right? And so here's the funny story. The reason we had gone to India was for my uncle's wedding. And so there was about 40, 50 family members there. And we were all enjoying the festivities. And so this was something that had never even occurred to me because it was never brought to my attention. It was not until we got to India that my parents said, hey, by the way, we'd like to introduce you to somebody. But the irony of it all is that we got married before my uncle did, whose wedding we
Oh
went
my
for.
God.
So he was
That
attending
is
our
too
wedding
funny.
first.
And we attend their wedding after our honeymoon.
Oh, beautiful, and congratulations. You
Thank
said
you so
21 years,
much.
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
17, right? 17.
17 years.
17 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So, 17 years, I mean, obviously, we see, and you are very known in the community, both of you, as a couple, a very strong couple. People look up to you, inspired by both of you. But at that time, obviously, you only had 5 minutes. How did you know? Was it instant that this is the person, or there was some sort of connection you guys felt? Because at that time, you really didn't know
So true.
what it's going to hold or how it's going to play out.
Yeah, you know what? Being a police officer, I think my intuition has always been bang on. And my intuition told me at that time that this is it, right? That she's the right one. And so I had to make a decision. It was yes or no. If I said no, who knows if that Jivan Sati, so to speak, or that person you're going to spend the rest of your life with would have come along. Because, I mean, everybody's in search of Mr. and Mrs. Right.
Yes.
And looking for that companion they can spend the rest of their life with. But every now and again, when the situation presents itself and you have that opportunity to meet the right person, I think it's our responsibility to take a good hard look at it. And so in that respect, I mean, there was something deep down inside that said, yeah, we'll make this work. Right? I mean, there's always going to be ups and downs in marriage.
Of course,
I think that's common
Obviously.
sense, right? But it's also a matter of compromise, and you have to be willing to work. With the other, marriage is work.
Yes,
There's
it
no
is.
doubt about that. As long as you continue saying yes, honey.
Yes, there you go. That's the only
Compromise.
compromise.
That's
That's
the
the only compromise.
Nod your head and say yes, honey.
So then you got married, you came back to Canada, and then when did you come? ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਦੋਂ ਆਏ?
ਕੈਲ 15 ਦਿਨਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆ ਗਿਆ
After
ਸੀਗਾ
15
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ
ਰੋਜ਼
ਕੰਮ
ਫਿਰ
ਕਰਨ
ਫੋਨ
ਲਈ
ਤੇ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਕਦੋਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਮਿਸ ਯੂ
ਨੋ
ਛੇਤੀ ਆਓ।
ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਹੈ ਚਲੋ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੋਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਤਾਇਆ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਸੀਗੇ
Oh, wow.
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆਉਣਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕੈਲ ਨੇ ਰੋਜ਼ ਫੋਨ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀ ਫੜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ ਰੋਜ਼ ਹੀ ਫੋਨ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛੋਟੇ ਜਿਹੇ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਸੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ ਦੀ ਤਾਰ ਕੱਢਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸੋ ਇਹਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਨਾ ਆਵੇ ਤੇ ਤਾਇਆ ਜੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ ਸੋ ਇਹਨੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਫਿਰ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਣੀ ਇਹਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ 4-5 ਦਿਨ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆਈ ਬੀਨ ਟ੍ਰਾਈਂਗ ਕਾਲਿੰਗ ਯੂ ਐਵਰੀ ਡੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਫੋਨ ਡੈਡ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ
So, Sandy, you stayed with extended family in India.
Yes. We still live in extended family here. Yes.
That's beautiful.
And then you came to Canada 6 months.
ਹਾਂਜੀ
At that time it was 6 months.
ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਲਈ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਸੀ ਇਵਨ ਕੈਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਟ ਡਸਨਟ ਲੁੱਕ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਕਿ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਜੌਬ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਵਾਈ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਟਰਾਈਂਗ ਟੂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਲਈ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਸੀ ਸੋ ਕੈਲ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਪਸ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਜਾਣਾ ਪਿਆ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਸੀਗੀ ਸੋ ਹੀ ਵੈਂਟ ਬੈਕ ਐਂਡ here we are. He brought me back.
So before we talk about your journey, Cal,
Yeah.
I want to know, so you went into policing, you wanted to be an officer. Was that something, how did you choose? मैं इस line में काम करना because it is as well a very rewarding as well as a very stressful job, you know, and always kind of being on the lookout. So how did you choose that this is what I want to do in life?
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, during university, I'd already made up my mind. I was on my way to law school. So I was going to write my LSAT, which is the entry exam to get into law school. But in the third year, there was a summer student constable program at the RCMP that was presented to university students as part of their recruitment drive to interest more university students to get into law enforcement, into policing. And I've always been interested in the criminal justice system, whether that's from the legal side or from the law enforcement side. I've always wanted to learn more. And I thought, what's the harm in doing this? Maybe I'll learn something, right, that can later be an asset to me when I'm practicing law. And so I applied for the program, I got in, and so they gave us basic, very condensed legal training and combat training. I was always very athletic, even back then, and so learning about the law, I had a law background back at university as well, so it was not very difficult for me to make that transition. And so they gave us the basics, gave us the uniform, no weapons, and put us out on the street with some senior officers. So those senior officers were then mentors that would then evaluate us and basically give us guidance and then just monitor us. And so I was deployed here in Surrey, and I had a chance to experience all the different districts, Guildford, Whalley, Newton, South Surrey, and it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
It was very sobering, and I'll tell you what it is. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's a call to duty. It's a call of duty because deep down inside you feel it that this is what you're meant to do. And so I knew right away. I fell in love with the job. I knew that was it. That's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so as soon as I finished my degree, I did my major in criminology, my minor in psychology, and I applied to the police department right after that, and I got on. And here we are 21 years later.
You know, so knowing that he was a police officer, I know police officers in India, and the system is very different.
Very different.
Police officer, you know, so we all know.
This is actually so true. While I was growing up, it always Punjab de ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਸੀ corrupt police officers.
Stereotyping, right?
Yeah. ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਟਰਸਟ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਆਰਮੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਫੁੱਫੜ ਜੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਕਿਆਲ ਦਾ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਆਇਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਉੱਤੋਂ ਫੋਟੋ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਤਾਂ ਗੁੰਡਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ seriously that was my view ਕਿ he doesn't look like a police officer ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਾਲੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਆਫੀਸਰ ਮੂਵੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕੁਛ ਹੀ ਦੇਖੀਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ
Movie, I think whose was it? Salman Khan's?
ਦਬੰਗ
Dabang, there you go.
ਸੋ ਉਹ ਕੁਛ ਹੀ ਪਰ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮੂਵੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਟਾਈਪ ਸੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਰਪਟ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਨੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਟੋਟਲੀ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਆ ਪਰ ਇਹ ਆ ਕਿ living in a small village, parents had made a decision already, and I'm glad that they did.
Yes, we're glad to.
Yes.
And Cal, I want to ask you, so 21 years ago, when you went into law enforcement, what were the challenges being from the South Asian, background, like your integration into the mainstream policing enforcement here?
That's actually a very good question. The problem is the very thing that you just described right now. There was a lack of trust and public confidence between law enforcement and the South Asian community, and there always has been. It was far deeper and far greater back then. Somewhat more of a subtle form now, but the South Asian community always likes to stay insulated. They have put up a barrier. They don't want anything to do with the criminal justice system because that's one of the primary reasons why I created Kids Play Foundation was so that we can break down these barriers with the community because if you think about it, statistically speaking, there's a disproportionate representation of South Asian youth, specifically males, that are involved in drug and gang crime. Like there's more representation from our South Asian community in that gangster lifestyle than there is compared to any other ethnic community. And question becomes why? Right? Like why is our involvement from our community so much greater than other communities? It's because we insulate ourselves. We indirectly condone this behavior by trying to bury it. And we try to sweep it underneath the rug, and we don't want our children going to jail. And there's a couple of major cases that have happened here in Surrey. Daisy is one of them, where this girl tried to sever her relationship with her ex. He ended up killing her, burning her body. And then the whole family, the boy's whole family got involved to protect him. Despite knowing that he had committed that crime, they got involved and they shipped him off to India because they didn't want him criminally charged. And when he came back, the whole family was charged. Like imagine that, right? The whole family gets criminally charged. And I thought that was excellent. I thought that set strong precedent in our community that if you try to protect your children from the crimes they committed, you will suffer the legal consequences of the criminal justice system as well, as it should be, right? And so many times I've seen where parents indirectly try to protect their children and condone that kind of behavior, basically, once again, trying to sweep it underneath the rug and trying not to get their children involved. Another example I can give you is, that was another one, but one specifically was we received information, it's called Duty to Warn, where we received information that there was going to be a shooting in a house. And so we arrived at the house, not me specifically, but the other officers who I heard the story from. And so they told the parents, they said, hey, look, your child is involved in this gangster lifestyle. They're actively dealing drugs. We received information that there might be a shooting at your house. And so we wanted to bring this to your attention, and if you could help us, maybe we can get your child out of this gangster lifestyle and put them on the right track, and also prevent this type of incident from taking place, because it might injure somebody innocent,
Yeah.
right? Because they have other family members there, and what about the neighbors, right? And the dad said, absolutely, I will tell you everything you need to know. I'm sick of this, and I want this done, right? Because he's not only endangering our safety, he's endangering the safety of the general public. The mom told the police to get lost. She goes, we don't want to have anything to do with you. Go away, right? We're fine. We'll handle the situation ourselves. And later on, that same mom ordered the dad to put plywood sheets on the boy's bedroom windows just in case there's a shooting, that at least her son will be protected. It was never about the general public safety. It was never about some innocent children might be playing on the street that might get into. She didn't care about any of that. All she cared about was her son. That's the type of disgusting attitude that absolutely sickened me. And this is why we've been working so hard with the community, is to break it down. But we're starting early. Like, we know a lot of kids that are much older that are involved in the lifestyle. It's very difficult to pull them out. So we're starting with grade 6 and 7 students, and we're mentoring them, we're guiding them, we're building rapport with them, we're building connections with their families, so that we can instill good, positive values in these children at an early age, so they never go down that path in the first place. And even if they get approached by the bad guys later on down the road, that they'll be so well protected with the knowledge that they won't want to go down that path, because they'll know the consequences and ramifications of going down that path.
How what you're describing, I feel like, the work you do with Kids Play, you're engaging with young children, but I'm thinking the mentality with the parents still lies, I want to protect my child.
Always.
What are are there services for parents that, that they
Educate
to educate
the South Asian
themselves and
community.
become aware of, how to recognize the signs and symptoms of, your children being in gang activity, violence, and engaging to violence activities? Are there services for them to recognize, and what can parents do to help their children?
Yeah, I think there's been a shift in attitude with respect to our educational institutions and our law enforcement agencies and nonprofits out there to focus just as much on the parents as we do on the kids. Because if you don't change the dysfunctional family environment that these children come out of, the child's behavior will never change, right? You cannot find a cure in the same environment that made you sick, right? So if there's a lot of dysfunctionality in a particular household, we need to get to the parents. We need to change that dysfunctionality, right? I mean, if there's some deeper issues at play, for example, domestic violence or something of that sort, then there's resources, there's counseling out there. But I think for the global, the general family, dysfunctionality essentially lies in the fact that parents are negligent or they're absent.
Or they don't want to accept it. They don't want to actually. They have the mentality. Shh! Don't tell anyone.
Denial.
Keep it to yourself. Yeah.
ਲੋਕੀ ਕਹੋਗੇ,
ਲੋਕੀ
ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ
ਕਹਿਣਗੇ,
ਪਤਾ
not to tell
ਹੋਊਗਾ,
relatives.
Loki
image.
Kalge is the big one.
Yes.
And Loki Kalge is the big one. And as a matter of fact, we just had, I'll give you a perfect example how attitudes and mentalities are changing now. It's working, right? Because we've been at it for so long. And my primary focus personally has always been on families, on parents. We just had a family reach out to us the other day. Like, think about this for a second. It's 2021.
Yeah.
It's 2021. And still, like, there's a lot of backwards village thinking in our community, lots. But I had a family reach out to me the other day where the dad broke down and crying, and he said his exact words were, "Mainu hun koi parwah nahi, I don't care ki log ki kehnge, I just want to save my children." Right? It's nice to see that attitudes are now finally changing, where parents are saying, who cares? Who cares if the people find out or whatever they say? At least my child's safe. Right? At least I'm
My
able to
kids
save
are,
my
yeah.
child. At least my family's safe, right? By openly talking about it, by getting the help that they need. Because a lot of these families fail to get the help that they need. Even though there's thousands of resources out there, they don't want it. They're like, no, we'll figure it out, we're good, right? No, you won't. You won't figure it out. No, you're not good. Because the thing is, you don't know how to handle the situation. They think they do, but they don't. And that's why we're putting on presentation after presentation, program after program. Because a lot of people in the community say to me, like, I mean, why are you doing so much? They haven't seen the destruction and chaos and death and decay that I have. There used to be bodies lying in front of me of kids that have overdosed or been killed as a result of gang violence. These people haven't seen that.
Yeah.
If they had to see that and witness it firsthand, they would know the suffering and pain that these families have to go through.
When we watch news, when we watch TV, and you see, something like that happen, a young child has been killed or shot, and been involved in gang activity and things like that. We just see snapshots.
That's
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
We see, okay, the police came in so much later or something like, but we don't see on TV, we don't see the amount of work it goes to engage the community, to educate the community, to involve the parents, to have a little bit of a mind shift.
It's huge.
And I think even having those, like you said, again and again, repetitive,
Yeah.
because maybe then somebody that didn't attend before, maybe they'll attend one that's one of them,
Yeah.
and then have that shift, right? Because repeating it, and maybe you'll get different people. People will come and pay attention to it.
Well, absolutely, but what probably bothers me the most is when some major situations happens in the community and there's members of the public that will say, go arrest those people right now. They'll say to the police department, go arrest those people right now, do something right now.
Yeah.
I want to say to the same people, where do you get the audacity? Because if you care so much about solving this crime, then why, we've run thousands of programs.
Yes.
Like, why weren't you out there with your kids? Or why aren't you there by yourself volunteering? We have thousands of volunteers, right? Put your money where your mouth is. Like, if you're not willing to give back to the community, if you're not willing to contribute and be a part of the solution, then you're part of the problem, just as simple.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things.
It's
Parents
very
think
easy to
कि
raise
ਪਹਿਲਾਂ
children,
ਤਾਂ ਅੱਛਾ
yeah.
ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਾ ਲੱਗੇ. Okay, then we want to fix it ourselves. We can't do it at home by nobody knowing. Let's send them
Believe.
somewhere. You fix our child, send them back.
I
Right?
mean, what's the
We don't want to do the
communication?
work.
Yeah.
We don't want to put in the time. You fix the child and send them back where you do. So it's. I think that has to change.
And also putting the blame on others.
Yes.
Maybe to the
Yes.
police, to the ministers. We don't want to do our job, but we want to put the blame
Oh,
on
my
others.
son or daughter wasn't like this.
Yeah.
The other kid was.
Police is
and
not
that's
doing their
right?
job.
Oh, 100%. And so it's just, I hear this all the time. Every single week I'm not exaggerating this, on average about 6 to 7 phone calls. 6 to 7.
Yeah.
And from families, she's witness to this. She's been in the car multiple times, we'll be having our own conversation and the phone will ring. And I'll pick it up, it'll be another parent. And I mean, Sandy's good that way, where she understands their pain, and so she'll stay quiet and let me deal with the situation. But she has seen it firsthand how much pain and suffering is out there, and these same parents will be calling me and saying, we don't know what to do, right? But the problem here is that you waited all these years to allow the problem to build up to the point where now it's out of your control. And now you call me, it's like, fix it.
Yes.
Right? It's just like there is no magic
And if you don't do
wand.
anything, well, you're no good.
Right?
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ help
Thank you.
ਕੀਤੀ.
Does it help to get right?
Absolutely.
Sandy, I want to ask you, as a partner, as a wife, you know, like, and obviously, you know, Cal is describing, you know, families calling, children involved, dead body of kids, you have children of your own. Like, how do you feel, like, sitting in that car and listening to these stories, and how do you support Cal? Because obviously, it's, you know, as a parent,
Mentally,
and
emotionally, also
emotionally,
affects.
you get so attached.
Actually, you know, this is so true. Being a mom, I started understanding their pain.
Yeah.
Before I wasn't mom, I couldn't understand that actually depth. कि where they are talking like रो रहे आ फोन ते ਜਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਣਾ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ ਪਰ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਅ ਮਮ ਨਾਓ ਆਈ ਅੰਡਰਸਟੈਂਡ ਸੱਚੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਾਂ ਹਸਬੈਂਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਦੇ ਡੋਂਟ ਹੈਵ ਦੋਜ਼ ਆਈ ਮੀਨ ਫੈਸਿਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ 18 ਘੰਟੇ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਟੂ ਸਪੋਰਟ देयर ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਦੇ ਡੋਂਟ ਹੈਵ that valuable time to spend their kids and the kids are doing whatever they want to do and it actually it makes me sad as well. So ਜੇ ਕੈਲ ਦੇ ਦਲਾਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੈਲਪ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਕੈਲ ਦੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ so why not? And we do have a big actually team with the kids play, huge team. All the volunteers, they actually comes out and go and help those families as well. Yeah.
So Kids Play has been, when was it started? And what is kind of the program? If you
I'll tell you, so I'll just go a little bit back to give you a brief history of it. But I was working in the downtown east side, and when I first got into policing, let's go all the way back, I came in with a very us versus them mentality. And because that's how law enforcement is structured, it's very us versus them. Like they call it the thin blue line. Thin blue line that separates order versus chaos, police on one side, bad guys on the other. So essentially, these suspects become objectified, right? Our job is to enforce the law and apprehension of these suspects.
Yeah.
So we'll go arrest them for breaking the law, put them in jail, our job's done, and the cycle repeats itself. And I became very entrenched into that system. I don't think it was until I got into the downtown east side that I began to learn these people's stories. Like, for example, we're quick to judge somebody and say, oh, that's just a junkie, that's just a drug user. But what caused that?
Yeah.
Right? What put that person on that road to trauma that made them do these drugs in the first place? Because a lot of them are trying to suppress the pain, right? And so when you start learning their stories, then you begin to humanize them, and then you begin to understand them, and then you want to do something about it. And so I was dealing with a lot of kids that were coming from lower socioeconomic poor backgrounds into the downtown east side to use and sell drugs. And I just thought to myself, you know what, these kids have never been afforded an opportunity.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, they come from these poor backgrounds, they were never given the resources, the amenities to succeed, and society has the audacity to point a finger at them when they break the law and say to these kids, well, you should know better, now you're going to jail. Well, I mean, these people that are pointing their fingers, did they ever take that child by the hand and guide them? Did they teach them? I mean, did they mentor them? No, right? So then whose responsibility is it? And so I just thought, being a police officer, being a parent and community advocate, that we all have a social moral obligation, responsibility to do something about it and to give these kids the resources. But there was one particular call that sort of changed my universe, so to speak, and that resulted in my change in perception. And it was a young child, which I later learned was 14 years old, 2 a.m. in the morning, sitting behind a garbage dumpster in the downtown east side, one of the lanes, getting his drugs ready, his crack cocaine. And I was the acting sergeant at the time, so I pulled up my vehicle into the rear lane, and I see him sitting there. And when he sees my police car, he throws down his drugs and he begins to walk away. And so I already made up my mind that I'm not going to arrest him. So I get out of the car and I yell, stop. Well, he keeps walking. And this time I say it a little bit louder. I said, stop. So he turns around and he comes back and he puts up his wrist in front of me like that. And he said, if you're going to arrest me, then throw on the handcuffs. Otherwise, I take it I'm free to go. Like, to think that a young child had that kind of audacity to talk to a senior police officer like that. But you got to understand, he's a byproduct of his environment. You can't really blame him.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, when a child does that, it's like, in his mind, what must be going on? I only have two choices.
Yeah.
You know, there's only two things for me.